Well, hey church, welcome back to the Midweek Devotional. I'm really excited to continue to discuss Saul and his conversion. Saul's conversion, if you've noticed, is something we're really covering a lot. We spent 2 Sundays and we've talked about it in another Midweek Devotional, and we're spending a lot of time on this, and we're doing this very intentionally. The reason for this is simply that this is one of the most important parts of the Bible. Without Saul, we really would not have much of the New Testament, because Saul either writes or heavily influences so much of it. Saul is one of the biggest, most important characters in the Bible, one of the people who the Bible spends a lot of time on. And so as we're people who believe that God's word is inspired, that God breathed it out, and so it's written by him. The Bible's not a book about God, it's a book by God, right? So if God spends so much time talking about this one person and tells the story of his conversion 3 times, we want to make sure that we spend some time discussing it. And today, we're going to talk about this idea that Saul is redeemed, and he is redeemed from religion. And we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between religion and redemption. So let's jump into it. We're looking at Acts chapter 9, and we're at verse 10. Now there was a disciple at Damascus named Ananias. The Lord said to him in a vision, Ananias, he said, Here am I. And the Lord said to him, Rise, go to the street called Straight, at the house of Judas, look for a man of Tarsus named Saul. For behold, he is praying, and he has seen in a vision a man named Ananias come in and lay his hands on him so that he may regain his sight. But Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard from many about this man, how much evil he has done to your saints at Jerusalem. When here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all who call on your name. But the Lord said to him, Go, for he is a chosen instrument of mine to carry my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. Now this right here is something that I think we need to discuss and we need to talk about at length, and that is simply Saul was a very religious man. This Sunday at church, we're actually going to be talking probably more in depth about religion, but Saul was a very, very religious man. Saul claims himself to be ahead above people, contemporaries his age in their religious studies. He was a man who wholly dedicated himself towards religion. Now, religion, I think, can often have a connotation in America. When we think of religion, we think of church people, church clothes, stained glass windows. Right? I think that's how we in our current culture view religion. But actually religion is a much bigger and broader issue than just 1950s America. Religion is something that you can have a religion of not being religious. You can be someone who is religious about not having religion. Religion is a much bigger, broader issue. I think that so often we say, yeah, we don't like religion, and we are referencing just one simple facet of religion. But even in our culture, which is, I would say, not a religious culture the way that we would view it, we're religious about things that we like, things that we don't like, sides that we choose in a fight, people who we agree with, people who we cancel. We're very religious about that. Why? Because religion is really something that focuses on things. It focuses on things. And redemption, which is what happens as Saul is changed into the Apostle Paul, focuses on people. So religion focuses on things, and redemption focuses on people. When someone is religious about anything, they seem to become obsessed with things that have to do with their religion. So we will be religious about church, and so we will fight over who gets to sit in which pew, because we don't want someone soiling or dirtying our pew. We don't want someone coming into our building that might make our building not as nice. But also, we will pick a cause and that cause will drive us, and so we will become focused on that cause. And so things that have to do with that cause, even if that cause has nothing to do with Christ, will consume us, and the things within that cause will consume us. And many of us will say, I'm not religious at all, and yet we will find ourselves dedicating ourselves to causes, buying things online that have to do with those causes, and obsessing over those things. We all know of churches who, church movements who have obsessed, listening to some historical podcasts about the Crusades, these religious people on two very different religions would fight over a thing, a piece of the cross, and it didn't matter to them who died in the meantime. All that mattered was that one group got this piece of this cross so that they could hold it against the other group. They were obsessed with things. Paul goes from being someone obsessed with things to becoming someone obsessed with people. See, religion obsesses with things, and redemption focuses on people. The Bible says that in heaven, when a sinner is saved, all of heaven rejoices. Why? Because in heaven, there's a redemption story, and that redemption story focuses on people. It doesn't focus on when we build a new building or when we make our building look a certain way. Oh, you had this cross at this location, and then heaven doesn't just celebrate. Heaven celebrates when sinners are saved. Redemption focuses on people. But also, religion focuses on out there, and redemption focuses on in here. And here's what I mean by that. In religion, the problem is always out there. How do you know if you're a religious person? Are you judging everyone else out there? Now, whatever you believe, not talking about whether or not you believe in God or Christianity, not talking about whether you believe in a certain denominational guideline, talking about whatever you believe about the world and culture, do you think the problem with it is out there? Or do you think the problem with it is in here? Because you will know if you're a religious person based off of where you think the problem actually is with the world. Is the problem or the solution out there? Is the problem with culture the Republicans? Is the problem with culture the Democrats? Is the problem with culture this group, these people? Is the problem with culture Hollywood? Is the problem with culture Christianity? If you think the problem is out there, you are struggling with religion. If you think the problem with the world is a certain group of people, or you know what, these people are making this country go this way, or these people make me feel this way. I'll give you another sign. If you are able to be triggered, then you have a religion problem. Now, I know culture says, oh no, we're not religious. So, yeah, I'm not religious, so this isn't the issue. But if you are able to be triggered, you think the problem is out there, not in here. If your focus is on redemption, you recognize the problem with the world is internal. There was a pastor who said that we should stop judging people. We should judge people a lot less more and start asking God to judge us more. This is someone who is focusing on the redemption process. He's saying, God, fix the flaws in me. Because if I can fix the flaws in me, I can become part of the solution. But as long as, so-and-so is the problem. As long, you know what, that person, they're the issue. You know what, if they would have not have said that, I would not be upset. As long as we have responses like that, we are religious people. We are people who feel like the issue is something out there. Saul had this big overriding theme. He thought the problem with the world was the Christians, the people out there. He was religious. The people out there are the problem. I'll go to Damascus. I'll go 150 miles on foot to chain grandmothers and desperate housewives and bring them back into 150 miles chained up to Jerusalem so we can kill them. Why? Because the problem is them. They are the issue. The problem's out there, Saul was saying. But when Saul begins to be redeemed, he begins to say, later on in his life, we find him saying that he is the chiefest of sinners. The redemption story always causes us to look inwardly and say, oh, the issue's here. I don't know where you are at your walk with God, but recently the closer I've become to God, the more sinful I'm aware that I am. The closer I get to God, the more aware of my sin I become. And I suddenly am like, oh, I have this issue. I have this issue. God, work with me in this. And our culture right now, the world religion right now says, don't ever let yourself feel guilty or shameful about anything. Don't ever allow that. But redemption says, I need to get as close to God as I can. And then as I'm getting close to God, I'm aware I should not be responding like this. I should not be looking at this. I should not be focusing on this. I should not be saying this. Why am I allowing others to trigger me? Why am I allowing the actions of the world around me to ruin my day? I should be responding better. I need to improve. I need to judge others less and allow God to judge me more. The redemption story is one that says the issue's in here. The religious story is one that says the problem's out there. You know, we've all probably been to a church that, I know I have, where the entire sermon is focused on people who have nothing to do with ever going to the church. They're not a part of the church, but the entire sermon is going to be those people and those people and those people and those people. They're bad, but we're good. That's a religious church. And our culture will push those people, those people, those people, those people, those people. They're bad, but I'm good. Don't tell me any differently. That's a religious viewpoint. So many of us who say, you know what, I'm not religious, struggle with the issues of religion. We focus on, hey, the problem is out there, not the problem is in here. And then thirdly, religion focuses on an outward appearance of change, and redemption focuses on an inward change. So religion says, you know what, whatever you believe, dress accordingly. Whatever you think, dress and act accordingly. Whatever you believe in, dress that way, look that way, follow these sets of rules so people know you believe that. Redemption says, inwardly, God is changing me, and I'm going to focus on the inward issues. I'm going to ask Him to change my mindset and my heart and my soul before I even consider, should I change my appearance? I think that the longer we focus on the redemption process and the inward part of Christianity, eventually God says, hey, you know what? Change this outward thing. I think it's inevitably going to happen, but our focus should be, God, renew in me a right spirit, a right mind, renew my mind. Help me focus on the inward things. Help me to realize that I need to ask you to show me things that I need to change. And these things are internal, and eventually, externally, I will change as well. But internally, I want to look and be more like you. Saul goes from a religious person to a redeemed person in this story. Ananias goes to him and helps him, and he ministers to him, and he serves him, and he baptizes him, and he goes from a religious person to someone who's been redeemed. The redemption story is a beautiful story, and it's not a religious story at all. Always remember, church, that you matter, Jesus matters, grace matters, and details matter. Have a great rest of your week.